something new comes up. Just kind of like a rough draft here speaking. You had the crime on Christmas Day, 1996, and then you had all of the subsequent relevant times during 97 and 98 and 99. The grand jury concluded, where we all thought there had been no indictment returned, and we didn't find that out for another 14 years after Alex Hunter folded up those indictments and essentially, stuck him in his pocket and threw him in a safe somewhere, and nobody knew for 14 years. I mean, there was a few people on the inside that knew. Obviously the grand jury, obviously the people that were involved in the grand jury, and a few other select Boulder authorities were also in on the view. The fact that for 14 years it remained a secret is kind of like astonishing, to tell you the truth. And so when you look at what happened in the case from there on out, you had the year 2000, where the Ramseys met the Boulder Police Department in Atlanta for a new round of interviews. You had the 2001 deposition in the Wolf versus Ramsey case. You had Linda Hoffman Pugh suing the Ramseys. You had the Ramseys suing Steve Thomas. You had Chris Wolf suing the Ramseys, and subsequently in 2001, and then what occurred from that was the Ramsey depositions in 2001, and then the decision in 2003, which was one-sided, and I don't need to go into that right now on the facts of how that came to be. But then after that, and then 2003 is when the DNA sample was put into CODIS, and that's where the case really left. It went into sort of dormancy. Well, at least publicly it did. But behind the scenes, 2004, 2005 is when James Kohler became the district attorney's chief investigator, primary investigator. By default, became the lead investigator in the JonBenet Ramsey case. And what Kohler uncovered and learned during his time as investigator for Mary Lacy was truly amazing. I mean, think about all the people in the places that they needed to be for at least part of the truth to come out. I mean, think about what if Kohler had never been in that position. What if he never accepted that job? What if he had never been offered that job? So he goes in there and does his own investigation. He sees things, starts to make some rumblings within the Boulder Authority arena, with the police department, and him telling the DA what he had found and other investigators, and he kind of got stonewalled and eight-balled, definitely, by Mary Lacy. And you have to remember another historical fact about this case is that when Mary Lacy took over for DA Alex Hunter in 2001, I believe, it might not have been officially until 2002, but this is when the Boulder district attorney's office actually took ownership of the case file. And so it was no longer in the police's hands, it was in the Boulder district attorney's office's hands. And they were the investigating agents. Mary Lacy hired back Lou Smith. This is where she ordered all those rounds of testing. This is where she entertained and allowed Michael Tracy and basically allowed the intruder theory to run wild in that office. Had would have John Ramsey over for tea, like in her office. You know, the next thing that happened was, you know, after Kohler was pushed out, or he left the office in 2005, the next year in 2006, you know, Kohler, you know, was like, you know, he was just going to go quietly, you know, like, but in 2006, Patsy Ramsey in June of 2006 passed away from ovarian cancer, and miraculously, just a month or two after Patsy Ramsey dies from ovarian cancer, is the whole John Markar circus and fiasco that was orchestrated and perpetrated. Ramsey Information and Michael Tracy with some lunatic John Markar, which was an embarrassment for the Boulder Police. You know, it's amazing how the Boulder Police Department, you know, couldn't get an arrest warrant, even though that they had probable cause, you know, the whole time that they had ownership of the case for Patsy Ramsey or any of the Ramseys. Even though they had probable cause, couldn't get an arrest warrant. DA office wouldn't sign off on it, wouldn't do it. But the Ramseys get indicted, and not only do they not get arrested and charged, it gets hidden for them, so they're free to go sue other people and parade around and act with. You got John Markar, on the other hand, who wasn't indicted by a 13-month grand jury looking at the evidence. They had absolutely zero evidence of him actually being in Colorado. His DNA didn't match. And they still got an arrest warrant signed in the 20th District Court, Boulder County District Court, by guess who, ironically? Signed the arrest warrant for Carr with absolutely no evidence. Okay? And she is the same judge who, not many people know this, was actually the Ramsey grand jury judge, which means she was privy to all of the intel, all of the paperwork. She made decisions. She was right then and there, front and center, inside. She was the inner ear. She was right there. She knows all the evidence against her. She still signed an arrest warrant for John Markar. I mean, really? And so that fiasco blew up in her face. But there's one thing that was accomplished out of there that won the day for the Ramseys huge. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later after I go end my review of the years of the case here. With her time limited because she had lost the vote of confidence of the Boulder Public District Attorney in 2008. So before she leaves office, she writes a letter of apology to the Ramseys and a letter of exoneration to the Ramseys. So it's like, hey, you know, if I can't pin it on John Markar, DNA evidence that didn't speak to such. She overblew it and then exonerated him, even though she made statements earlier. I mean, in 2009, the tide started to turn back towards the new DA elected was Stan Garnett, and almost immediately after Stan Garnett took office in 2009, this office looks at the evidence totality, and no one has been ruled out, and rightfully so. And he also returned the case rightfully back to the Boulder Police Department.